Hello there. So we just watched the movie Slumberland, and we wanted to give our thoughts and kind of tell you what we thought about the movie. The movie itself is on Netflix. It's rated PG. Came out in 2022. 2022. I can't talk. Came out in 2022. You want to read the names because I'm bad with names.
What?
Just the director and maybe one of the
It's
stars.
directed by Francis Lawrence, and some of the stars are Jason Momoa, Marlo Barkley, and Chris O'Dowd. Um, so some like decently well used actors, especially Jason Momoa. But it's an interesting story. Overall, I think the story itself was not bad. Like,
Once it got into it, yeah.
yeah, but conceptually it was flawed, and execution wise it was very, very bad.
Yeah. Yeah, so the story itself, once I finally understood what the story was decent enough, and we'll talk a little bit about spoilers. So, if you want to see it,
Or if
maybe
you
go
haven't
see it
watched it,
first.
yes.
Yeah, yeah. So, I'd say the first 20 to 30 minutes was just all very confusing.
It was very lost. I was very lost.
Um,
The movie's about a little girl named Nemo, and she and her dad live in a lighthouse, and they basically kind of just live in this like isolated life, away from everybody else. Which, if you live in a lighthouse, yes, you're isolated. That's kind of how it works. But her dad goes out late one night to help somebody who has sent a distress signal, and he unfortunately gets lost at sea. And so she winds up having to move in with her uncle, who is also kind of this isolated dude who really loves doorknobs. But he just kind of lives in, this big penthouse, and he makes tons of money, but he's always been alone. And so it's these two people trying to deal with their grief, in the sense of, she lost her dad, somebody that she spent tons of time with, and he has lost his brother, but he had a disconnect with his brother, and he had isolated himself from his brother. And so she starts dreaming. Nemo starts dreaming, and she has these wild, crazy dreams with a guy named Flip. And we don't really understand who Flip is right away. By the end of the movie, you get that Flip is the uncle, or like the part of the uncle that he's kind of suppressed because of his disconnect with his brother. But it's a very interesting story. I like conceptually the idea, and I also really love that they paid a lot of homage to one of my favorite movies, Inception. And it's just the execution was just so bad. There were so many ways that we could have fixed this movie. So many ways. Like for one, just what was happening and how she gets into these dream sequences, and it didn't make sense for the way that she like fell into these dreams. It was just like 1 minute she was dreaming and 1 minute she wasn't, and then her dad's dead. Like it was all over the place.
yeah, it was really hard to follow.
Yeah, and I feel like that probably tanked its Rotten Tomato score, and it tanked some other scores. I think it has like a 6.5 out of 10, like for the most part everywhere. But like Rotten Tomatoes had a 40%, right? Like it's just it's rough.
Yeah, the acting's pretty good.
Oh yeah.
But the writing and just the way it all came together or didn't come together is kind of problematic. I'd give it like a 6 out of 10.
Yeah.
So
I wouldn't even give it that.
I'd give it above average because at the end of it I enjoyed it, but the first 30 minutes I was lost and was not enjoying it at all.
I feel like there were some really good, like well acted scenes, especially from a perspective of children when they're going through grief and they have to move in with another family member who is also grieving, the loss of a family member, and how those things kind of interact, and the struggles and the anger and the, like all the stages of grief, right? I feel like those were so well acted, but because the writing Well, actually, like, I can't even say that the writing itself was trash, because, like, dialogue-wise, it was fine. It was the flow of the writing that was trash. It was the flow of the whole thing. Like, I don't know if somebody, like, accidentally kicked over the storyboard and they just kind of threw it back together. Like, that's what it felt like.
Yeah, editing was very kind of choppy.
Oh,
like, the
editing was
storyline
terrible.
was just
Yeah.
all over the place.
Yeah. Like, I wanted to be, like, more invested in the emotional piece of it, because I feel like emotionally it's a really good movie, and good for families. There's a little language, but, like, good for families overall, just to kind of discuss, like, this is what it feels like when you have a nightmare, and this is maybe perhaps how you feel. But, like, the rest of it, I would give it, like, a 4.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I want to give it more, but
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, though, I didn't feel like it was a complete waste of time. Mm-hmm. Which is why I gave it such a high score. So,
I would agree.
But I'm not going to go watch it again anytime soon either, though, or ever.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not even a movie like we just had a niece, and it's the reason I bring that up is because it's not even a movie I'd be like, Grace, we got to have your kid watch this movie with us at some point.
No.
Like, the kid doesn't ever need to see the movie. It doesn't.
No.
It's
I mean, if she, like, turns it on, I'm, like, not going to sit there and watch it with her.
Yeah.
I will be doing something else.
Yeah. But, they tried. Wasn't the guy that played Flip, wasn't he
Yes.
Aquaman?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's why I said Jason Momoa, he's been used a lot, and I think it was kind of fun to see him. I mean, we've seen him do things like this before in terms of just, like, the humor and the just kind of being, like, out there and all over the place. But, like, it was everything that he did in this movie was so very overshadowed. Like, the eccentricness and everything was overshadowed by the fact that it was just a bad movie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. For sure. So if you have Netflix and you want to burn the time, then go for it. But not necessarily. It's not necessary for you to run out there and watch it.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. I wouldn't even. I mean, if you're curious about it, sure, go ahead. But I wouldn't even necessarily recommend it to anyone either.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that's, like, the sad part, because, like, even just, like, watching the trailers and stuff, I was like, oh, this looks like it could be fun, but and I'd been curious about it for a while. I just hadn't sat down and watched it, and, like, it just, there's a reason that I hadn't watched it, I guess.
Yeah. And I personally do get wrapped up in emotional storylines, and this I did not.
True.
I didn't even really feel any emotion.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, I felt what they were going for, I guess, but it didn't affect me in any way, negative or positive way at all. So, but yeah, that's pretty much all we got to say. Yeah. So, I'll leave Ice Goddess's YouTube channel in the description if anybody wants to check her out. She does book reviews mostly. But thanks for watching, and you all have a good rest of your day.
Bye!
Bye!